here with Jeff Skin Wade. What has been your overall thoughts on Luka this season, from where he came at the beginning of the year to where he is now? Are you surprised? Is this what you expected? And then what are your thoughts on just how he's
Okay, well, for starters on Luka, this has far exceeded anything imaginable for me. And I think really for most people. I think even the biggest Luka fans didn't expect him to do Michael Jordan numbers, Oscar Robertson numbers. I don't think anybody anticipated that, even his biggest fans. For me, I looked at last year's draft as, all right, this is a very unique draft for bigs. It's hard to get the right kind of big. And so I very much wanted to come out of last year's draft and get a big. But I don't do extensive draft research. I don't break down film and all that stuff. So I rely on people that do it. And the one thing that I learned, I'd read great stuff about Luka, and I'd seen plenty of clips of Luka, and I thought, okay, he looks pretty good. But one thing I learned is that the Mavericks were unanimously on board with Luka. And that changes the way you look at things from the outside, because one thing you'll hear reporters say, well, the Mavericks believe this, or the Cowboys believe this. Well, that's a load of junk, because there's a bunch of people in the front office, and they don't always have the same opinion. But I can tell you the Mavericks unanimously had the same opinion about Luka. So that made me want Luka even more. And then in September, I was at a charity event, and a bunch of the guys were there, and the way they were talking about him really kind of got my attention, because veterans don't talk about rookies like that. And this was based on those pickup games that they were playing, and it wasn't just the Mavs. It was like Miles Turner was in those games, and Monte Ellis was in those games, and Jet was in those games, and NBA-related dudes that lived here in the Metroplex, and they were all saying the same things about Luka. So that's when I was like, all right, I'll definitely start thinking about Rookie of the Year. I have Rookie of the Year expectations. And then the moment for me where I was like, I have to readjust all my expectations, not moment, but game, was when he scored 11 straight against the Rockets. And that was superstar stuff. Rookies don't do that stuff. That's when I was like, man, this guy might be, franchise changing. So as the year's gone on, my expectations for him have changed, because he keeps knocking holes in the ceiling as to what he is. So I've adjusted my expectations accordingly, because he keeps making it more difficult to keep him in a box.
For sure, 100%. And obviously Kristaps has had the craziness going on recently, but what do you think of that duo moving forward?
I think it's an ideal duo. Like when you start putting two guys together, all right, well, this guy does this, what's the best thing to put off of him? Like, I was a big Dennis Smith Jr. fan, and I didn't agree that you had to get rid of Dennis Smith Jr. I wasn't a person that believed that. I think you have to take young players and give them time to develop, especially if you're asking them to do things they haven't always done. But that's an example of people looking at that and going, well, that's not ideal. If you look at Luka and you look at Porzingis and what those two guys do, offensively, it couldn't be any more ideal. The idea that you're going to be able to have Luka come off of a Porzingis screen and he's going to flare or pop, and what that's going to do to the guy on the opposite corner. I mean, we've even seen it this year with a different, more jumbled court, Luka's ability to make these cross-court passes that are perfectly on time and on target. That's going to expand even more when you put an offensive player the caliber of Porzingis on the floor. And I also think that even though the game has changed a lot, Rick's got a lot of stuff that is post-oriented if he needs to go there. The guy coached Jermaine O'Neal, for example. So Porzingis is really good in the post. I think you'll see him in the post some. I don't think you're going to see like 90s basketball, but it's a weapon, and they will use that. So their skill sets are so perfectly matched for one another offensively that I think it's a dream. Now, what's the right guys to put around him? Does it have to be just 3-and-D guys or more athletic guys? Or, that's something that Donnie and Mark and Rick are going to figure out, and I think they will figure it out. But offensively, to have a dynamic duo under 25, if you're just writing it up, and you're on your wish list, those guys are going to be perfect for one another.
Back to Luka for a moment as well. So we talked with Ben Simmons on Monday.
I saw that clip. It was good stuff.
He was pretty emphatic about Luka's Rookie of the Year. But other guys have been saying, hey, it's a lot closer than what people think. The Donovan Mitchells, the several players have come out and said,
I thought
hey,
Blake Griffin did,
yes,
maybe.
Blake did as well.
Yeah.
It said, hey,
Jimmy Butler, I think.
yes, said, hey, Trae's rookie of the year. Is it close? Do you think Trae has a shot?
I don't think it's close,
Okay.
and I don't think that that's a shot at Trae. People, get into these sports arguments, and you start taking, it's like arbitration in baseball. You start hacking away at a player that you want to keep, right? It doesn't make sense. But historically speaking, I mean, people haven't done what Luka's done. He's in a very select group of people. It doesn't take away from the great thing that Trae Young has done, the great things that he's done, but it's not historic in the same way that Luka is historic. And in fact, Trae wasn't very good for 2 months. Now he's been really good lately, and I think you can make an argument over a 3-week period better than Luka. It's a season. It's not rookie of the February. It's a season. And what Luka has done all season long trumps this category over here of what Trae has done. It's not a knock on Trae. Trae's first team all rookie, and in other years might be rookie of the year. But I'm sorry, this is not close. And maybe it's not fair because Luka played pro ball last year. And not only did he play pro ball last year, he was the best player in their entire frickin' league. All right? And if you don't understand, if Luka's Real Madrid team came over here last year and played Jalen's Villanova team, I'm sorry, they would have run him out of the gym. So Luka was the best player as an 18-year-old turning 19 in that league. Second best league in the world, way better than college basketball. So it's really may not be fair to consider Luka as a rookie of the year since he was already playing pro ball. But I'm sorry, I don't think it's close. Doesn't mean Trae Young's not a great player.
I agree with that. Back to Dennis Smith. I like what you said there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there was any chance that it could have worked? And why do you think it turned so quickly there?
I definitely think it could have worked, but it was going to take more time. Mm-hmm. And so I think people get impatient, and I think people within the Mavericks got impatient, and that's their prerogative. It's like it's easy for me to sit here and go, well, this should happen or this should happen. I'm not in the trenches making these decisions, and I'm not running practices, and I'm not making personnel decisions, and I'm not a player interacting with other players. So there may have been a lot more that goes into it behind the scenes that we're not privy to. Mm-hmm. But I just think the best example I would give you is that if you go back and look at the first month and a half that LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh played together, they didn't mesh. And those are guys, veterans, in the prime of their brilliant careers, having to figure it out. So what do you think 20-year-old Dennis, who's had the ball in his hands his whole life, you think he's just immediately going to flip a switch and be that? I don't. I expected a long curve there, learning curve there. But I think their talents would have won out over time, and I think they would have been fine together. Having said that, it's a no-brainer to trade a player I really like in Dennis and all that they traded for Porzingis, because I didn't look at Dennis as a franchise-changing player. I looked at maybe if he reaches his full potential. I looked at him as a potentially great player and one that I really wanted. But man, Porzingis, come on. He's the tallest player in the NBA. He's incredibly skilled, and he's a perfect. You don't have to squint and go, okay, I can see how Luka and Dennis might work together. You can just know that it's going to work together. So it was a great trade. The Mavericks got fortunate that they could make that trade, and I'm happy for the Knicks that they got Dennis, because I think Dennis is going to be a really, really good player.
Absolutely. Last one for you, a personal question. Mm-hmm. The young skin Wade, did he ever think when he was a kid growing up he'd be calling Dallas Maverick games on television?
Absolutely not. I never thought that I had any likelihood or potential to be in this situation that I'm in. I've been doing it for 10 years now. I still can't even believe that. And I still feel like, one day I'm going to walk in there and go, what are you doing here? You need to leave. So I grew up coming to games with my dad. He was a basketball coach. I mean, our family was very into basketball all the time. So, but I was also a very realistic kid. Like I wasn't one of these kids that grew up and thought, I'm going to play in the NBA. I never thought that. I never thought that was possible. I'm not good enough. But you have to have some good fortune. I mean, you have to be good at what you do, and I believe I have talents. But I got lucky. I was really lucky, and I have to give a ton of credit to Mark Cuban for being willing to do something outside the box. There's not really people that do what I do that didn't play college or NBA ball. So, man, thank you, Mark Cuban, for being willing to do it. Thank you to Fox Sports Southwest for being willing to do it, and for early on, Followell and Ortigal for bringing me in. And then when Harp came in, Harp was great to work with, is great to work with. So I got really, really lucky. And when you get lucky, you got to make the most of it. So I feel like I've made the most of it. But to answer the original question, there is no way in hell I would have ever believed that I would have had a chance to do all this.
Amazing. One last quick one. Your prediction, is this it for Dirk? Is that it?
I think it probably is. But I personally want him to come back. I think he's got a lot to offer, and I think he's the kind of guy that would be willing to adjust roles and expectations to be a part of a team. But, none of us can feel what Dirk feels, know what he has to go through. I've been saying, hey, why doesn't Dirk decide in September at camp? Go to camp. It's not going to impact our salary cap. We're not going to, not keep a player we're dying to have because of Dirk. That's not. So if he gets to September and his ankle feels like it does right now, then keep playing. But that's me pretending to be Dirk. We can all pretend to be Dirk. It's like the old Gatorade commercials. We want to be like Mike. Well, around here we want to be like Dirk, right? So we can pretend to be Dirk and know what's best for Dirk, but none of us know what he deals with, what he's going through, how he feels about it, the emotions of it. So whatever he decides, I'm 100% on board with because of everything he has given the DFW. It's been awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, you got it.